Welcome to Queen Victoria's School Insights, a series of short podcasts delivered by Forces Children Scotland thanks to funding from the Armed Forces Covenant Fund Trust. These podcasts have been co-produced with pupils from Queen Victoria's School, which is a boarding school for children and young people from armed forces and veteran families. These podcasts' primary aim is to help young people who are about to join Queen Victoria's School and their parents to provide extra information and insights which we hope will help make the move a little bit easier. It's also hoped that the podcast will help peers from civilian, armed forces and veteran backgrounds to better understand how life at Queen Victoria's School is different compared to their day-to-day experiences. How do we make this happen? Well, we're here with pupils from Queen Victoria's School to talk about several important topics. Okay, so for episode 2 of our Queen Victoria's School Insights podcast series, we're looking at the subject of the boarding school routine at the school. And I'm delighted to say I'm joined by Micha, we have Charlie, we have Alicia and Katelyn. So to start this topic off, I'd like to talk, Charlie, if I can, with you first about the key timings and activities of a regular day at Queen Victoria's School. So you can provide a little bit of insight there.
Yeah, of course. So the day starts at about 7 o'clock wake up, and that's by the staff walking around and just waking us up. That's soon followed by a house meeting, so that's where we get told about some of the events happening that day. We'll go down to breakfast at about 8 o'clock. It's a good time to catch up with everyone, a little social part. We leave for school about 8:30. So that's a little walk down to chapel and then get more announcements. Then there's a few breaks between the day. So we have morning break, we have lunch, which is another time to catch up with everyone and most importantly eat. Then another break following that. So then school finishes about 4:30. From 4:30, we get a little bit of free time for our own things. So it's when people do things like hobbies, such as go to the gym, play sport. And dinner about 6:30. Which is when you can see everyone else in your year. And then following that dinner, we have a thing called prep. And prep it's a little hour and a half in our own rooms, just tidying up, doing our homework, and just getting ready for the next day. And then when prep finishes at about 8:30, it's our own time we get another bit of free time to go do what we want. So that's where most people go out and do evening sport, which is just down to the fields and go and play sport.
Oh, thanks for that, Charlie. Really appreciate that. So it sounds to me like it's a pretty full-on day at Queen Victoria's School. But I think it sounds to me as if there's a real balance between your academic study, you've got your own sort of personal downtime, but also you have time to explore your passions, whether it be sports or crafts or whatever. Is that a fair point, Katelyn? Or
Yeah, I think the balance between your academics and your free time is quite good. So you've got a lot of different activities that you can, or if you don't want to do, you don't have to. There's other options. So instead of hockey, for instance, is wider achievements, which is things that you can do out with sports. Myself, though, I am quite a sporty person, so I do take part in hockey. So I am in the hockey team, and for the boys, if they're into the rugby, then they can play for the rugby team. But if you're not into that, like I said, there's other activities that you can take part in.
And is it the same for you, Alicia? Do you agree too? It provides great opportunities to sort of catch up with your classmates throughout the day, whether it be through sport or at dinner time. There's that great sense of community as well as the sporting life as well.
Yeah, so obviously lots of time to catch up with your friends throughout the day. You've got breakfast, lunch, dinner, and then obviously free time. But I'm the opposite scale. I'm not as sporty, so I take part in the wider achievements part of school, and that still gives me time to catch up with friends if I want to.
Fantastic. And Micha, I understand you're very much into your sports, so do you spend a lot of your time away from your studies doing sport?
Yeah, I do. I'm normally down on the sports fields or in the gym, because that's where I go if I want to take a break and relax from doing all the revision and academics from the aspect of school.
No, fantastic. So I think for me, obviously, I went to state schools, so, I've only really had my own sort of experiences working with you at Queen Victoria's School every now and again. So a thought that's always come into my head is when you go back home, whether that be every sort of weekend or every month or at the end of a term. But I'm wondering if you could tell me a little bit about the kind of question in my head. Does it take a little bit of time to adapt when you go back home from that very full-on schedule as you described, Charlie, but then you go back home and you're no longer around your year group and basically all sorts of different routines. So does it take a little bit of time, Alicia, to adapt?
Yeah, it does. So I got used to waking up at 7 and having a set routine, but at home I don't have that routine. So I wake up later and then I don't really have much to do in my day because all my friends are either still at school
Sure.
or they're at work. So I have to I use that time to either study or just chill for a bit because I know it's the holidays.
I can imagine. And Katelyn, you were telling me in the earlier episode that you live in Perth, which isn't too far away. So do you go home quite regularly, or is it just at the end of the term?
No, I just go home for terms, or if it's like one of my family members' birthdays, then I'll go home. But I choose not to go home on the weekends because I do like to have the like freedom almost to go out to Edinburgh or Glasgow like with my
Nice.
friends.
That kind of almost that sense of community.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Charlie, what about yourself?
So I tend to not really go home on the weekends. I only go home on the holidays, and there is that kind of big change because
Sure.
it is living at school is very full on. There's a big structure to the day, but when you're away at home, it's quite relaxed. I prefer it because it's a nice rest from school. But sometimes you do find yourself becoming quite bored because there's simply too much time in the day.
Yeah, that's something that it seems to come through here is that, that structure, that routine, all those activities, it sounds like it's 24/7 full on, but that's what I think at the crux of my question is. It's like you say, it's just how do you adapt to that? I mean, for you, Micha, do you find that it's quite pleasing not to having the alarm on, but do you find you have enough when you go home to do like with your sport and keeping up with your friends? Is it the same kind of balance, or do you feel like you're
I have a structure at home so I'm able to do everything that I need to do during the holidays, but I always feel like there is enough time to communicate with my friends and that, go on calls to them or just text them like group chats that we will have.
Sure, and that was the other sort of the point I was going to ask there. Does technology come into it? So when you're particularly with the longer sort of holiday times, do you just keep in touch through all sorts of social media and stuff like that?
Yeah, so mainly Snapchat because we've all got our group chats and we just talk on that, and that's how we communicate with each other and just see how each other's holidays are going.
Fantastic. No, that's great stuff. And just moving on, we talked about the fact that it is pretty much 24/7 culture for all of you pupils with regards to your academic, your sport and your house life. So I imagine you have quite unique opportunities to form very unique, strong bonds with the staff. Is that true to say, Katelyn?
Yeah, so because I spend a lot of time down at the sports department, I have a really close bond with my sporting teachers. But as well as that, you can have a really close bond with your house staff and other members of staff, like teaching staff, and they're all very nice and keen to get to know you because they understand the predicament that you're in of being in a boarding school. So they're all very lovely and welcoming. So it's really easy to form that special bond with them.
Thank you, Katelyn. And Charlie, do you feel the same?
So yeah, you build these bonds really quite quickly because these are the same people that wake you up and also tell you to go to bed. So, and you see them around the house, and they also have their own lessons as well. So you could be in a lesson with your housemaster, for example. So you do quickly build up that relationship with them.
Does the same go for you, Micha, with regards to stronger bonds with staff?
Yeah, there is a handful of staff that I do feel like I can go to whenever there's something wrong or if I do need advice on situations. Because of that bond, we've been able to grow over the time I've been at the school.
Fantastic. And do you agree with that, Alicia?
Yeah, definitely. So there are a few members of staff I will go to if I've got a problem and I feel like I need to share it with someone. So there are a few members of staff I can go to.
Yeah, I can imagine that must be so reassuring, because I think something that's really important in this series of podcasts is we talk a lot about the many positive experiences, of life at Queen Victoria's School, but there are challenges, we can't escape that. But it sounds to me that whether it's, having a chat with your classmates and your friends, equally to the teachers sound very approachable, so it's not just about, if it's the maths teacher, it's not just about a maths question, you can go to them with anything. Would you generally agree with that they're very approachable if you've got any problems at all?
Yeah, definitely. Especially if they're working in your boarding house as well, because you spend so much time with them when they're on duty. Because you see them walking about, and like the other said, if they wake you up, they're probably going to be putting you to bed
Sure,
as well.
yeah, absolutely. No, and I think that's a nice segue on to the next topic there. So we're going to explore a little bit about the boarding house arrangement at the school. So this is something I know nothing about. I think we were having a little discussion before we started recording about the various houses here. We have Wavell, Trenchard, Cunningham. So I'm wondering if we could just explore some of these houses and maybe explore some of the differences that basically take place there. So Katelyn, maybe starting with yourself, can you tell us a little bit about Wavell?
So Wavell is called the senior girls' house. So it's from girls ranging from S2 to S6, and for S2 and S3 you are in shared rooms of 4, 3 and 2 possibly. And then once you get into S4, 5 and 6 you have your own bedroom, and it's really nice to be in the same corridor as all your friends and possibly the same room as them when you're a younger age. And there's more timings, like it's easier timings to get along with than Trenchard, I'd say. And it's really nice to be around other year groups as well, and it's just an all girls house, so you all feel so comfortable speaking to each other in the common rooms or the kitchen or even corridors and bedrooms.
Fantastic. And Micha, I believe you're also in Wavell, so do you have anything to add there? Is it kind of a similar feeling to yourself there?
Yeah, because I started in P7, I saw how it was from Trenchard and Wavell. And Wavell, you're treated much more like an adult, and you get your own freedom, and you develop the responsibility you'd have when you leave the school, which I think is really helpful because the teachers always aren't checking on you all the time. They're just letting you do your own thing, which I really enjoy to have.
Fantastic. Thank you, Micha. So Charlie, let's get the view from the boys. So tell me a little bit about Cunningham.
So I'd say the biggest difference between the senior boys' houses, Cunningham and Hague, to the junior house called Trenchard is just the structure and the way that the staff kind of treat you. So in Trenchard, this place is to be very strict on times. You do kind of develop the timekeeping skill, but then as you move into the senior houses, you do kind of develop becoming independent, and it's not many people like chase you up for not being there. So you do have your own responsibilities.
Thank you, Charlie. And Alicia, we were talking a little bit off camera there about the fact that, you've moved between various houses from Trenchard to Wavell, but you also talked about the fact that you have done some extra work to support the younger pupils within the house structure. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so when I first joined QV, I started in Trenchard because I was an S1 girl. And then when I moved into S2, I moved up to Wavell. But at the end of S4, I decided that I wanted to move back down to Trenchard and help the juniors. So in Trenchard, it's P7 boys and girls and S1 girls, and 6 senior girls, 3S5, 3S6. And we're just down there to help support the juniors in their transition from coming from state school, coming to boarding school, and then just before the S1s go up, helping them move up, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
And telling them what it was like for us.
No, fantastic. So I think, just reflecting on what we've talked about here, it sounds like Queen Victoria School is a very special place with a really special sense of community, sort of solidarity, and it sounds like we celebrate the success that you all achieve, whether it's pre-academics or sports, but equally when there are challenges, there's plenty of people to go to, whether it's pupils, it could be the school staff, it could be the sports coaches. And I think that's great too, that you talked about, Alicia, the fact that there's also pupils going into the junior house to provide that little bit extra support for the younger people who might need that little bit of reassurance at that early stage of their Queen Victoria School experience. So just the final topic I'd like to do for this episode is, we've looked very much about inside Queen Victoria School, but Queen Victoria School is situated in a very beautiful town called Dunblane. And I think every time I come to the school, we do our sessions, but when I'm leaving, I'm seeing all the pupils coming back from Dunblane with various shopping bags and whatever else. And I'm wondering if you could just tell me about some of the popular places that pupils go within Dunblane to get those little extra bits and bobs.
So during the week, everybody at some point has gone to the first shop, and it's just a little corner shop down the road. And if we want to get some snacks, we'll just go down there. And Ali, the owner, he's really nice and will give you a few discounts sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Bonus.
Yeah, he's really nice. And then on the weekends and for seniors on a Friday, they're allowed to go into Dunblane and they go to Tesco's or to the Chinese or a Chippy.
Brilliant. And I think as well, Katelyn, you mentioned earlier that, you know, sometimes there's trips to wider afield to like Glasgow or Edinburgh. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
That's only for the seniors.
Okay.
So S5 and 6 are allowed to go to Edinburgh or Glasgow or any other places. And it's really fun to have that sort of like option to go to,
Absolutely,
because
absolutely.
once you go to Stirling and Dunblane, it is quite fun for like younger ones because they're not used to going out by themselves.
Yep.
But it gets a bit boring after a while, so it's good to be able to go to Edinburgh and Glasgow and like first shop, as what Alicia said.
Oh, fantastic. And Charlie, if I needed to go and get some Haribo, where'd I go in Dunblane to get my Haribo?
Oh, there's a few options, but the main one is Tesco.
Okay.
Tesco is the final destination for the trip to Dunblane. Yes. So you see everyone. It's a very common sight is that during the weekend, around people's rooms, there's big bags full of big Tesco bags packed with food and sweets and.
Fantastic. And is it the same for you, Micha? Is there any sort of other shops aside from Tesco and First Shop, or is that the go-to shops?
Yeah, there is a co-op where you normally just get your like free for like £1 sweets, and they're really good for that. Or they're like different kind of chocolates and that, which I really enjoy.
No, fantastic. No, absolutely. And I think as well too, it sounds like it really adds to the experience, because we talked about forming strong bonds with the school staff, but equally too, you know, you're there for a number of years, and it sounds like you form strong bonds with those in First Shop, etc., etc. Is that quite true, that you tend to get on first names, or at least they recognise faces?
Yeah, so when I walk into First Shop, people go, "Oh, good morning, Alicia," or like "good afternoon," depending what time of day it is. And yeah, so you do build that bond with them throughout your years at QV.
No, fantastic stuff. So that is the end of our podcast. So I want to thank you all for sharing your lived experience. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
That's okay. Thank you.
We hope you've enjoyed listening to our podcast, and please do listen to our further episodes. If you'd like to find out more about Forces Children's Scotland or Queen Victoria School, please visit our respective websites or social media channels. Once again, thank you for listening.